Mm. Okay. Starting to come in. I know. What am I doing? No, I was trying to do some other things. So you finally hear action. And you know what? Prophet, this is the flow time. So yeah. Uh, all right. Oh, whatever. She would say that. Tell her I said I'm tired. I know. All right, because we're going to start in a moment. Let me just try to invite a few more people to come in and join with us. Mm. Oh, that's the good thing. Okay, we're going to start. Just give me a few more minutes. Okay, baby. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get started. I think we got the t-shirt that's showing in the bag. So we have the t-shirt that you can get. The t-shirts are $10 because we're not really trying to sell. We're trying to get a message out. And so certainly in this time, it is time for spiritual warfare. And that's what the t-shirt is about. So for $10, you get you a t-shirt, you inbox, and we will get that out to you. Okay. So this is Flow Time. So for some of our first time viewers who are just tuning us in, Flow Time is for ladies only. It is a women's empowerment moment that we take to really talk to women about being all that you can be in Christ, making a decision that you're not going to live a status quo life, but you're going to accomplish all that you feel the Lord is giving you to do, and then get Him to give more for you to do, because that really is how that happened. The more faithful you are, the more He will assign to your hand, and He will give you to do. That's the name. He will give you to do, and because life is short, life is always about living a fulfilled life. And you know what I think about often, that as a believer, before Christ, I had a different mentality, different expectations, different desires. After Christ, I had to learn how to break the way I thought. Okay. And so for many, especially women, if you grew up in a traditional church, you have to retrain your way of thinking. Some women get stuck in the way that we've been programmed to think in church. And I always have to stop and say, this is not a program about beating men, or we are against men. This is about reminding women that God has a purpose for our life, in spite of the way we've been taught, in spite of how men may try to make us feel as if we are not significant, that our lives don't matter, that God to be baby carriers and cooks and cleaners. God has designed something so much greater for women, and we have to tap into that greatness and find who it is the Lord will have for us to be. Because I always say this, we are greater than the way we live, especially in our traditional Pentecostal churches. We are greater than the way we live. And you'll be amazed at how your teaching will influence your status in life, because it influences what you desire. You can only go as high as you think. So if you think on a certain level, that's as high as you're going to go. You won't achieve anything else because you're not desiring anything else. Your mind is not going to tell you that you can do more than what you're doing. And there's so many women that's sitting in church, sitting at home, twiddling their fingers, who are doing absolutely nothing, with so much on the inside of them, that there's so much that God wants them to accomplish that they should have accomplished. Let me do this because I'm going to need my hands for a moment. That they should have accomplished, but they have not. So Flow Time is about stirring that up in you, motivating you, that you will begin to dream, okay? Because dreamers get things accomplished. I was sharing with a preacher friend, female, on yesterday. She and I were talking, and we were talking about being women who are in ministry and the challenge of that, how that looks for some people, and how even now some people still do not respect the fact that there's a woman who's in a leadership position. And so it's totally different for a female who's leading a church than it is for a man who's leading a church. And so Flow Time is to say to women, in spite of what position you may have, you got to know that you are greater than what you're living. I've been doing this for 38 years, and I'm not the person I was when I first started out. I think about the first night that I came to the Lord as a young woman, 7 months pregnant with my second kid, when the preacher had me to stand up and begin to tell me that God has something great for my life. Because I was feeling like that's it for me, that my life, at 19 years old, that was my life. That was it. You know what I'm saying? I had a kid. I got another kid on the way. I'm doing absolutely nothing. This is just it. And so went to church really just feeling depressed and suicidal and hopeless. And when the preacher called me out, sometimes I look at the things that I accomplished, and I think about that night when he called me out. And as I stood there, just feeling hopeless, had no clue all the things that God had planned for my life. And so I just really want to encourage and stir somebody who's just kind of sitting and you have no clue all the things that God has in store for your life, but you got to change the way you think. You cannot allow your childhood, and I'm going to come back up, but I'm trying to do something. You cannot allow your childhood, people, your experiences to lock you down and make you believe that that's it for you. Things are so much greater. So every time I accomplish something else, I think about that night when I stood before the Lord, nervous but excited, and I had no clue that once that relief came, that he had some other things that were planned for me. Okay, so one of the things that I want to talk about, that there are so many women who want to do, and I'm going to tell you this, my ministry has always been one that I have not had many cheerleaders. Unfortunately, my mother died probably 2 years into salvation. So I had only been saved, a year and a half to 2 years when my mother passed. And my mother was certainly a big cheerleader. She was constantly telling me what all I could do and the plans that God had for my life. But then it gets to the point that my mother passes, and then now it's just me trying to find my way, feel my way. And as a young believer, still trying to find what God meant to me, working through that thing of making a decision that I'm going to totally surrender myself to the Lord, and I'm going to walk this walk and live this type of lifestyle. So it was a major change that I was undergoing, and also dealing with the death of my mom. And so as a young woman preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, I didn't have many people that was excited about the message, not many who, enjoyed hearing what I had to say, because it has always been a message that goes along with my personality that was quite confrontational and just blunt. It is what it is, and here it is, and you take it or you leave it. And so, not many cheerleaders, so I had to learn how to dig deep within me and find the resolve to keep going, even when there was nobody saying you can do it, you can make it, you're going to be okay, you're doing a great job. I mean, people would come far in between when I was like really get to the point where it's like, you know what, I want to quit. God would always send somebody to say, you know what, you're doing a good job, keep on going. So that's what I want to do for you. I want to be that voice that says, if nobody has ever told you that you have great potential, I want you to know you have great potential. And often we don't hear it because when we represent something people are not comfortable with, they are not going to celebrate you. When we represent something that people are not ready to embrace, or, maybe they failed at it, you're not going to get too many people who are going to really push you on. So you got to learn how to dig within yourself and to keep moving. And once you start digging within yourself, you get to a place that you begin to discover your different gifts and talents, and you find out that it's so much more to you than what you're doing. And I'm going to tell you this, while I sit and I think about dreaming, anticipating, expectation, and so in other words, writing a vision and making it plain. How does that look, to sit and write a vision and to make it plain? You have to know who you are and be comfortable in who you are before you can really begin to write a vision and to make it plain. Because if you're not plain to yourself, you certainly can't write a vision that's plain, because it's going to go with what people are saying, that maybe they feel you should be doing this, maybe they feel you should be doing that, and that's what you'll find yourself doing. You find yourself moving from place to place. Okay, so once I embraced the fact that I understood who I was in Christ, and I came to understand that ministry is that type of thing, that God has so many ministers that everybody is not everyone's cup of tea. So you have to learn how to embrace your audience, and you do what God has told you to do for those people, and they will be blessed by you, and you don't have to worry. Okay. So one of the things I want to talk to women who have the ability to, wordsmith. You have the ability to use words to get a message out. When I started writing, and I suppose this is a shameless plug, but it's not. I brought this for the sake of making my point. These are 4 books that I've already done. I'm currently working on 2 other books, and I got so many more that's stuck in my head that once I'm done with this social work program, then I'll get back to writing like that again. I'm still writing, but it's at a slower process because, school, field practice, all those things. However, I believe that every gift and talent that God gave me, He wants me to use it. You see what I'm saying? So as a young woman, right, a young single mom, at one time in my life, my greatest desire was to make sure that I could live independently of the system, take care of my children without the assistance from welfare. I didn't want to have to use food stamps. I didn't want any of those things. I wanted to be independent. So I spent all of my energy trying to make sure that I worked so that my kids can have this life and say, we don't get any assistance from the system. Now, as I got older, I realized that was really admirable, but it was so silly because I could have done so much more, and it was not like it was going to change my status, because my status was what it was. I was a single mom that needed assistance. Either way, my point is, there was always a part of me that wanted something more, wanted something greater. So there's some of you that I'm talking to that you have something deep down on the inside of you that you always want something more. You're just not happy with where you at. Maybe your entire family feels real comfortable with their life. They're not bothered. They're not troubled. They enjoy, and as a matter of fact, when you start bringing up how you want to change and some things you want, they're going to talk about you, because it's like, well, why are you trying to do all that? I mean, what is that about? Why is that necessary? One of the main things I want to say to you is God is the one who stirs that desire in us. He's the one that put that in us. And so when you ignore that desire, you are ignoring God. And it is easier to ignore the desire because it keeps you in a position where you can stay with your peers. And it's real comfortable when you're with peers because you know them, you are accepted, and you're not forced to walk alone. But when you hear God, it's going to pull you out of your comfort zone and put you into a position that you usually don't know. It's very unfamiliar. This territory is something you've never charted before. And in my case, I always say, as wonderful as my mother was, my mother only had a certain level of success because she was limited in so many things. My mother only had like a third grade education, so she taught herself how to read. She always wanted to go to school, but there were so many other things that always came into play that she was never able to accomplish those things. So here I come along as her daughter with a totally different mentality and attitude. And some of that I will attribute to her, who will always say to me, Rochelle, you got to do more. You know, you can't just stop here. I always tell people I became a nurse because my mother forced me to be a nurse. It was not my desire. My mother said, you need to go and you need to do something. Go be a nurse. And so I went to school and I became a nurse. And although she was real good at pushing, she herself was limited in so many things. And I want to say for some women, we become limited because we limit ourselves. I'm going to say it that way. Some of us are in marriages, in relationships, you know, surrounded by people who do not encourage us to do more, to be greater. And that's the first thing I can say to you is get you either by yourself or surround yourself with people who think higher than what you think. Some of you need to surround yourself with people who don't know you on that level. Because what I learned is that when people know you on a certain level, they want you to stay there because that's what's comfortable for them. They don't want you to go higher than where you're at because then they don't know you anymore. So if you stay on level A, they're real happy with that because they know you well on level A. And some of you know what I'm talking about, that as you start growing and you start doing things differently, people start saying little stuff like, you know, so-and-so's changing. You know, they start to act funny. They're not the same person they used to be. And when I used to hear those type of comments, you know, it kind of troubled me because I would be like, well, man, I don't want people to think that I'm changing and I'm acting funny or I'm this. But then I began to understand that it was the truth. I was changing. I was becoming better. I was growing. And as I started becoming better and I started growing, it put me on a different level than maybe some of the people that I was accustomed to being around. And hear me when I say this. When I say about being on a different level, that don't necessarily mean that I don't talk to people, you know, I don't engage with people, but it's on a different level for me. You see what I'm saying? I've been with people who their brightest day was, and this is a long time ago in my life, the brightest moment of their day was check day. You know, when you got your welfare check and you would go to the currency exchange to pick up your welfare check and your food stamps. You know, I got past that crowd. It was actually a crowd of people. And we were really excited about that day. But then as I began to grow in God and want to become more, that began to change where it was like, you know what, I don't want to live like this. What did I say to you before? God is the one who put that desire in you. And one of the things I came to learn is that God puts that desire in us because the Holy Ghost is trying to do his job. What is the job of the Holy Ghost? To lead us into all truth, to take us to the place that we are perfected and we become the people that God designed and destined us to be. In my mother's womb, it was purpose for me to do what I did and more, okay? So I'm still working on it. So one of the things in writing that I found out, people who are consider themselves wordsmiths, you have the ability to write, that you got to take time. It's plain and simple. When folks say, you know, I'm going to write a book, and I've had people, and I think that's real funny when people say to me, you know what, Prophetess Lee, I got a book for you that you can write. Let me give you this subject. And they'll tell me this, and they say, now, when you write the book, make sure you give me the money. And I always think that that's real funny. Number one, just giving a topic. You know what I'm saying? It's not writing a book. You know, anybody can come up with a topic, and all of that is beautiful. But that's half the battle. Most people have books that's locked inside of them and they never get a chance to write it for one simple reason: they don't take the time. Okay, writing your book is just as important as changing your infant's diaper. It's just as important, hear me, as potty training your kid. It's just as important as you getting up, clocking into your job. Writing your book, it's just that important. It's just as important as having date night with your husband. Come on, people. You know, some folks ain't gonna let you mess up their date night. They have it planned. Why? Because they have their marriage as the top priority. What I tell you, Flo Time is for ladies only. This is about motivating you to be all that you can be in God. Stop making excuses. It's time for you to get your book written. Okay? Take the time. I read in a book one time, and unfortunately, I don't remember it. Google it. Hopefully, you can come up with it. But this book takes away any excuse for people who have a difficult time writing. You know, I've met people say, you know, I've been working on this book, oh my gosh, for about 20 years. I've been working on this book for 10 years, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow. So you pretty much are telling me writing is not a priority for you. Even while I'm in my master's of social work program, as I said, I'm doing my field practice, I still take time to write. And writing is a top priority because I know it's a gift that God gave me, and he gave me a message to give to people in my writing. Okay, so real quick, let me do like this. The book that I did, My Life as a Single Christian, I wrote that book, I think this was my very first book, My Life as a Single Christian, I Survived. I'm going to find it. 2006. Okay. This was written in 2006. All right. The first is always the hardest because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know where you're going, especially if you haven't had any type of formal training in writing. Many people who do not have formal training in writing, they really do think writing is just something easy. You just sit down and you start writing. And this is horrible because I can't remember the guy that did the quote, but he said it like this. He said, writing is easy. All you do, you sit down and you look at a blank piece of paper and you start bleeding. So when you write, you are taking a portion of you and you're sharing it on paper for others to see. You got to take the time. So I sat and I wrote My Life as a Single Christian that dealt with, all right, so let's look at the time that we're living in. Some of you are real good at writing. You're real good at words. It may be writing a book of poetry. It may be writing a book about cooking, that you could find a way that in your book about cooking, you put something in there about the Lord. You get what I'm saying? We got to learn how to use what we have for the kingdom. Okay, so My Life as a Single Christian is a book that I wrote. Take the time to write. That I wrote this book. And so many singles was blessed by this. Now, for me, this is a good book. The writing is horrible. I have to tell the truth about myself because I've become a better writer. I started taking classes for writing, and I've learned how to write, the technicalities of writing, okay? So it takes some effort. But why did I do that? Because I wanted to reach a broader audience. Why? Because I know God has given me a message for women, and what I do is I take a creative way to get the message across, to say to women, okay, wait a moment. I know women like to curl up with a book and they like to read. I got something for you because I need to talk to you for a moment. So imagine if you take what God has given you and you keep it on the inside of you, people never get an opportunity to get blessed, right? So it's real easy. If nobody in your family has ever written a book, it's real easy for y'all to sit around at Thanksgiving time and Christmas time and talk about all the books you're going to write, and y'all talk about the books you're going to write. You see, well, I'm going to write a book about this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. It's time to break that, and somebody sit down, take the time to write. I did this one. This was for single Christians, and what the book did, it dealt with how single Christians navigate dating in the church. You know, it talked about the different singles who are in the church. My motivation for writing the book is that I was weary as a preacher of seeing singles coming to the church, dancing and shouting and still falling. And so I'm like, okay, we got to get a way to say to them, this is not working. I think I need to do a part 2 because it's still happening. That was a little joke. All right. But I was serious on that. All right. So my second book I did was taking on the Tysons. So this went a little differently. that I did. And so not so much of a Christian book, but it dealt with a very interesting topic. And I won't say because it would give the book away. Yes, I know how to sell my books. You have to order the book and you have to get the information. But it deals with the topic that many people encounter. They do. They deal with it. So I took it and I styled it in the sense of, let me say this, it does touch on the topic of unforgiveness and what it does to a person when we do not forgive. But there's some other things in there. You got to go in there. Amazon. All these books are available on Amazon and iUniverse, which is the publishing company that I use. They are self-published. These were my latest books. I wrote both of these books in 1 year. Yep, 2 books. Okay, in 1 year. And yes, I am bragging on myself because I'm trying to stir and motivate you and take away your excuse that you don't have time. This book has 249 pages. This book has 299 pages. You have to take the time and do some things. Both of these books deal with topics that are so important. Vengeance is Mine talks about infidelity in the church and how we should handle that. And not taking on. Dance of the Quarreling Lovers is not a church book, period. Okay. Now, the reason why I did not make Dance of the Quarreling Lovers a church book is that I wanted to find a way to talk to women who do not attend church, but they have the same issue that church women have. And that issue is navigating relationships with guys who don't want to commit. And often as women, when we deal with men who don't want to commit, we sacrifice ourselves. We sacrifice our bodies. Some women will sacrifice their children for a man who is not willing to commit. So this kind of deals with what happened when you're dealing with a guy who does not want to commit. And, how do you get a man to commit who don't want to commit? Do you get it by giving him all the sex he wants and sexing him the way he wants to? That's what the old people used to say, sexing him. Sexing him, sexing him the way he want to be sexed? Or is there a method to the madness? So once again, this is not a Christian book. I intentionally did not write it for just Christians. I wrote it for women. I wanted women to be able to get the book, to be able to read, and to hopefully see themselves and see what they're doing and to change. Because I believe it is so important, it is imperative that women begin to wake up. We are the backbones of our families. That's always been the case, okay? So this is why you can have a single mom who can raise her family and the kids turn out all right. And it's the truth, because that mother is a nurturer. She has, and I'm not saying she don't use any other support systems, but as a mother, a woman has the ability to nurture, to find the good in people, and to bring that good out. But when we get caught up into other things, it hinders who we are and hinders our potentiality, and it puts us in a position that we do absolutely nothing. Now, let me say this, because often what women confuse, because we find out about ourselves from what we hear in the pulpit. Okay, that comes, like they say, come across the pulpit. So once again, I grew up in a very traditional church, and one of the things that I was taught was my place as a woman. Even as a young girl, I consistently heard what my position was as a woman. And honestly, you know what I was taught my position was as a woman? It was to support the man. I was to support my husband. I was to be there for his need, to fulfill his need. And I do agree with those things. I do. I do. I sure I agree with that. But as God began to show me, and you begin to look in the Bible, women were much more than just supporters for their husband. They had a more significant role that they played, and God dealt with women. He used women. So if you go off what you've been taught, how you've been trained, and I'm telling you, ladies, I'm telling you, it is difficult to break away from that, because that's been instilled in you. And then let's do this. Let's couple that with, you've heard it at church, and then you hear it at home. So maybe you had a father that believed that women, should be subservient, and this is what their role should be. And when I talk like this, you would think that women would cheer. I often get more opposition from women than I do from men. Women would say, you know, it seems like you trying to make me like a man. I'm not trying to make, I'm not trying to make you a man. I'm trying to make you accountable. I'm trying to make you wake up and realize that you are much more than body parts. You are much more than a thing of pleasure. You know, God gave us these bodies, but we are also responsible for accomplishing some things, and you have to shake that mentality, because if you got it at church, if you got it at home, you're going to get it out in the world. And how do you rise above what you've heard all of your life? You got to hear God. What is your spirit saying to you? What did I say earlier? That desire that you have in you, that desire is a God-given desire, but it's scary to tap into that. It is scary when we start tapping into things that God has given us and things that God has said to us. And because what's really happening is we're discovering who we are. And that is always scary. When you find out, wait a moment, you mean all my life I heard how big my mouth is. Yeah, I'm sharing my own personal thing. All my life I've been told, you got a big mouth, you talk too much. You know, you say whatever comes to your mouth. All my life I've heard that. Only for God to say to me, listen, I like that about you, because I know I can tell you to say something and you're not going to be afraid to say it. But for many years, I shied away from that because I didn't understand my gift and my potentiality had been placed there by God, and it was up to me to tap into that. What's that? The talents that he gave. It was up for me to look at every part of me that maybe people do not like. You know, I think I counted me to my husband. I'm not trying to stir up any type of trouble in your home, but I am trying to stir women up to say, listen, you got here. But you know what? Success does not come to those who lie still and who won't move. Success comes to people who are willing to push against the grain, and you keep moving until you find people who will appreciate who you are and what you do, and you keep going with your life. Okay, so one of the things that I came to realize is that what God has placed in me, he placed inside of me because he gave me an assignment that only I can accomplish. If I don't do what God has called me to do, then that's on me. And I can't blame my husband. I can't blame my children. I can't blame the neighbors. I can't blame the job. I got to find a way. These talents that the Lord has given me, I must find a way to find time to accomplish all that he has given me to accomplish, because I'm well able to do it. One of the things as I'm ending up that I think about the women who go as they're passing out and they're giving out land. I like the way you're tiptoeing. That's so cute. My little granddaughter just a tiptoeing. That is really cute. Okay, so they're giving out the land. And so, but these women, they had no brothers to get the land. These women didn't let them get by with that. It's like, okay, well, wait a moment. My daddy ain't got no males to inherit. And this was uncommon. He don't have no males, but we're females. But we know that we're supposed to get this inheritance. We have a right to receive some things. And that's the part I'm trying to get you to get stirred up in you. You have a right to receive some things, and you have to expect, because your expectation will render these goods to you. If you don't expect it, you will not receive it. And some women don't expect, so you don't receive. Shift how you think. Start expecting some things. You want to do some stuff in your life, man, change how you see yourself. I don't care if nobody in your family has ever accomplished anything. You could be the one that set the precedent that now we get ready to do some things different in my family. And, and I don't know how often I can repeat that, because it is the truth that for women, we're often put into a position where it is challenging for us to accomplish things. It's challenging because we fight against people, we fight against outsiders, and we fight against ourselves. That our minds will constantly tell us we're not able to do it, we're not going to be successful, we cannot accomplish it, it can't be done. And you got to start speaking some different things to yourself. And as you begin to speak differently to yourself, you have to put the energy behind what you're speaking. I don't know about you, but I know I'm getting ready to accomplish some great things. I am motivated. I am stirred up. I am encouraged that I'm going to do. And that's a whole different topic, because I ain't going to even get into that. But you got to learn how to work in spite of, as I said earlier, the lack of support, the lack of people who will encourage you, the lack of people who will say, oh, you're doing a great job, keep on going. Because some people will sit back and they are holding their breath, waiting for you to fall on your face. You have to know this. And what you have to do is, in spite of their energy, you got to find something on the inside of you that says, I'm able to accomplish this and more. I can't tell you the number of people that I constantly shock because I won't lay down. I won't lie down. I won't quit. And it's like, man, this lady is still going. Yes, I'm still going because I have a vision. I have anticipation and expectation. I am looking for some things. I know what I've seen in my mind, how I've imagined my ministry to be. And I know that desire came from God. And I know He did not give it to me for naught. He gave it to me because He plans to manifest it and make it a reality. So I'm encouraged, and I'm going to keep on hanging in there. So get busy. Start doing what you have to do. Start writing. Whichever way you have to do that, you need to get busy and get your things going. If it's singing, you need to get busy and get stuff going, because we're given a certain amount of time on this earth. And what the enemy really tries to get us to do is to just let time pass us by. And then when you look around, it's like, oh my gosh. And I will always repeat this. One of the saddest things is a friend of mine who passed. And she would always tell me how she was going to do this women's conference. And she always said, I'm going to do this women's conference, and these are some of the things I want to do. And I remember seeing her a year before she passed, and she was no longer talking about doing the women's conference. She had been diagnosed with cancer, and it was in its final stages. So she was more concerned, about her health, her life, and, preparing herself for the end. And I can remember walking away from her really feeling sad. I knew she was a born again believer, but I felt so sad because the conference she had talked about for about 10 years, that it was something she was going to do, and then only to never accomplish that, and to see her last days was really spent, just coming to terms with the fact that my life is getting ready to end. So my prayer and my desire is that women will realize their potential. They will work on those things and begin to expand yourself, because we're not going to get a whole bunch of people, especially in church, who really look for women to do. And it's really sad, because as women, we are the ones that support. You get what I'm saying? We are the primary supporters in ministry, but often women will support the doings of a man before they support the doings of another woman. And I suppose maybe because we're looked at as competitors. Who knows? But anyway, get busy. Do what you have to do. I don't have to plan here because our destiny plan, we're doing some different things. You got to find your destiny plan. Post the pictures of your destiny plan. Tag me in it. Start working on some things that your life